Anyway, Professor X found me. That's when I knew that X-Men really existed. After being interrupted twice in a row by Lu Chuang, Ivan finally got his memory back and said all the words in one breath without giving Lu chance interrupted by Chuang. What did he ask you for? Before Ivan could answer, Lu Chuang asked very quickly. Are you looking for you to establish the Mutant Underground Organization and invite Lorna and John to join the Mutant Underground Organization? Hearing Lu Chuang's words, Ivan's face turned black. Why do you know this? Gossip. However, I only mentioned this to John. Lu Chuang didn't change his face. I warn you, you can eat indiscriminately, and you can't talk indiscriminately. I never said that John told me. Ivan. Stone Hammer, the traitor among us is John. Ivan has a bit of a headache. John told her that he accidentally revealed some information. Now Ivan just wants to grab John to ask. Are you sure this is some information? And he almost told her the color of his underwear. Ivan was silent for a few seconds, and finally nodded. Yes. If that's the case, why doesn't Professor X do it himself? Doesn't he have X-Men? Lu Chuang asked without hesitation, as if to break the casserole and ask the end. Afraid that Ivan would not want to say it, Lu Chuang patted his chest and assured him. Don't worry, my mouth has always been tight, and I promise that no one else will know. The corner of Ivan's mouth twitched. You might not believe it, John promised her the same way back then. It turns out that a man's mouth is a deceiving ghost. But for some unknown reason, Ivan subconsciously felt that Lu Chuang was trustworthy, and she shook her head. At that time, the X-Men seemed to be in some kind of trouble, and Professor X said that they had more important things to do, so they could only give me this task. Unknowingly, Ivan has been influenced by Lu Chuang's super high school priest and revealed many secrets to Lu Chuang. Did Professor X say what it is? No. Speaking of this, Ivan looked at Lu Chuang and said, if you want to ask me about the whereabouts of the X-Men, then I can tell you clearly that I don't know where the X-Men are. Ivan didn't know the whereabouts of the X-Men, which surprised Lu Chuang. Didn't Professor X mention it to you? Ivan shook his head. No, after Professor X gave me the task, he left. I haven't contacted him since then, and I haven't seen the X-Men, so I don't know their situation now. Hearing this, Lu Chuang secretly thought something was wrong. This is the rhythm of the clues to be broken. Lu Chuang could see that Ivan had no trace of lying, and began to think in his heart. As far as he knows, there are two endings for the X-Men in the old Professor X story that still exists. One is before reversing the future, and the other is after reversing the future. The former almost all died in the hands of the full version of Sentinel, and the latter almost all died in the hands of Professor X in the end. Only an old wolf, and with Professor X, it can be said that it is miserable. Regardless of the ending, the X-Men basically ended up being wiped out, and it is reasonable for them to disappear suddenly. But the question is, why did Professor X find Ivan? At present, Lu Chuang is not sure whether the direction of the story is the same as he thought. After all, the character of Ivan has never appeared in X-Men, and he has never heard of the Mutant Underground Organization. Of all the mutants that Lu Chuang has encountered now, only Clarice is a character he is more familiar with, having appeared before reversing the future. Some time ago, Lu Chuang specifically asked Clarice if she had been in contact with X-Men. As a result, Clarice, like other mutants, thought that X-Men was a story. Obviously, Clarice had never been in contact with X-Men until now. At this moment, Lu Chuang suddenly thought of something. Why did Professor X ask you to invite Lorna and John? What's so special about them? Ivan frowned suddenly. I can't answer this question. I promised Professor X to keep it secret. A base. Lu Chuang decisively raised a finger. Ivan showed a tangled expression. Even if you say that, I also. 2 bases. Lu Chuang raised 2 fingers and said at the same time, you have to understand that Professor X hopes that you can help more mutant compatriots. It should be a good deal to exchange an unimportant piece of information for the safety of more mutant compatriots. As soon as these words came out, Ivan was really moved. It's just that she said that John was a traitor just now, and it always felt like a slap in the face when she revealed the intelligence information. Seeing that Ivan was shaken, Lu Chuang continued. Besides, Lorna is my friend, and her affairs are my affairs. It is reasonable for me to help her figure out the reason. Professor X will definitely not mind if you tell Lorna herself. Well, now even the reason has been found for her. Professor X, don't blame me, I'm all for the mutant underground organization. Ivan sighed helplessly. The reason for inviting John is very simple, because he is a relative of X-Men, we know him well, and he has this ability. As for Lorna Dan. Having said that, Ivan suddenly paused. I saw Ivan's expression became serious. Her identity is not simple. Seeing Ivan's reaction, Lu Chuang said with interest. Why is it not simple? Have you ever heard of Brotherhood? Ivan said softly. Brotherhood. Hearing this name, Lu Chuang first thought of Assassin's Creed, then thought of Fascia, who starred in Assassin's Creed, and then another Brotherhood of Fascia. You mean the mutant organization that is hostile to X-Men? You know all about this. How fresh. I also know that the boss of Brotherhood is Magneto. He is a good friend of Professor X. Ivan was surprised that Lu Chuang knew more than she did. At least she didn't know that Professor and Magneto, the leaders of two hostile organizations, had such an intimate relationship. Lu Chuang's brain was spinning very fast, and he squinted his eyes and said, You don't mean to say that Lorna is the blood of Magneto, right? How do you know? Other things are fine. Ivan finally couldn't sit still after hearing this, stood up and looked at Lu Chuang in shock. Their abilities are exactly the same, so it's not hard to guess. Lu Chuang calmly looked like a wise man, pushed his non-existent glasses, and said with certainty, If my deduction is correct, Luna should be Magneto the granddaughter, right? Ivan. Just kidding, Lorna is Magneto's daughter, right? Lu Chuang said cheerfully. In fact, since Lu Chuang saw Lorna's ability, he can basically be sure that Lorna has a necessary connection with a certain famous mutant, that is, Professor X's good friend Magneto. The abilities of the two are almost exactly the same. Both have the ability of controlling magnetic field, although most of the time they can only control metal, which is a bit of a stretch, but it is undeniable that their abilities are very powerful. Definitely, the possibility of duplication of ability is not ruled out. But Lu Chuang has a very strong evidence that can point out that Lorna and Magneto are the biological father and daughter, that is, Lorna's pretend instinct that seems to be engraved in the genes has already deeply betrayed her. In terms of pretend, who in mutant can compare to Magneto? Therefore, Lu Chuang can be 100% sure that Lorna and Magneto are definitely related by blood, and Lu Chuang knows that Magneto has several daughters, and one of them is code-named Polaris. To add here, Scarlet Witch of the future Avengers is actually the daughter of Magneto. It has to be said that the Magneto family are all people of the scene, and the instinct of pretending has been engraved in the genes. Seeing Lu Chuang revealing Lorna's identity all of a sudden, Ivan had no choice but to admit, You were right, Lorna Dan is indeed Magneto's daughter. Tisk tisk, Professor X really knows how to play, Lu Chuang said with emotion. Inviting the daughter of my old rival to my camp, this kind of coquettish operation can be imagined. If Lorna really joins the mutant underground organization, when she meets Magneto, she might stage a fatherly love scene on the spot. The drama of female filial piety. Professor X is such a bad old man, no wonder Magneto often falls in his hands. Lu Chuang asked curiously, Does Lorna know about this? Ivan pretended not to hear Lu Chuang's slanderous words against Professor X, and shook his head. Lorna Dan didn't know about it. She thought she was an orphan, after her adoptive parents died. She has been living with her aunt since, and no one has ever told Lorna Dan about her life experience. I see. Lu Chuang wondered if he should tell Lorna when he went back. In fact, she has a very awesome father, and he is also a good friend of the X-Men leader. Maybe she can recognize a particularly awesome mother by the way. Although this mother's head is a bit bald. Putting away the thoughts that started to diverge, Lu Chuang was a little puzzled. Since Professor X and his X-Men have disappeared, why hasn't Magneto appeared? Isn't now the best time for him to do something? Who knows, Ivan replied. Magneto disappeared long ago, earlier than Professor X, and his Brotherhood organization also disbanded, just like X-Men disappeared completely. No one knows why. Magneto and Brotherhood gone too. Lu Chuang frowned. He felt that this incident should have something to do with the disappearance of the X-Men, but there are too few clues now. Lu Chuang can't think of any useful information for the time being. However, Lu Chuang did not give up the investigation. Under his constant questioning, Ivan was very cooperative. As long as it did not involve important information, she was willing to reveal the information she knew. Half an hour later, Lu Chuang left the apartment with his notebook. Lu Chuang looked at his game system. Big news, can be completed. In the end, Lu Chuang still failed to investigate the truth behind the X-Men. The information Ivan knows is limited, although it is not like John and the others who don't know everything, but the information she knows obviously lacks some of the most important content, such as what kind of trouble Professor X and the others encountered back then, which caused them to suddenly disappear. Lu Chuang felt that the trouble that Professor X mentioned was definitely the key point. As long as we figure this out, maybe we can know the truth behind the X-Men. But Lu Chuang is not without gains, and finally Ivan told him a place where it is possible to find the X-Men's former base, and the address is located in Westchester. However, it was getting late now, and Lu Chuang was not in a hurry to leave for Westchester immediately. He decided to take a suitable helper to take a look at it another day. This type of investigation task is too brain-intensive, and he needs tool people. Oh no, the assistance of a helper. As for who to ask for help, Lu Chuang already had an idea in mind. Lu Chuang was walking on the road, flipping through the notes in his hand, trying to sort out the recorded information. While passing through Harlem, Lu Chuang suddenly heard a loud noise. Looking up, he saw several military vehicles parked on the side of the road, and a large number of soldiers with live ammunition came out of the vehicles. What's more exaggerated is that Lu Chuang noticed several helicopters circling overhead. This huge amounts of formation instantly attracted passers-by to watch and take pictures. Some people in the crowd have already recognized that this is America's military force, and everyone is only curious as to why America's army gathered here at this time. Immediately afterwards, Lu Chuang saw a captain with a hooked nose and stern eyes coming out. As for how Lu Chuang could tell that he was the captain, the reason was very simple. Among so many soldiers, he was the only one who did not wear a tactical helmet. If the lens is not at the level of the captain, it cannot be justified. The captain ran directly to a building not far away with his gun in his hand, followed by other soldiers pouring into the building like a tide. Only a part of the soldiers stood outside and waited. Looking at the bright guns in the hands of the soldiers, the passers-by consciously stood 5 meters away. Only the patrolling police officers dared to approach the past and ask what happened. Lu Chuang pricked up his ears to listen, only to hear a soldier say, "We are arresting an international fugitive. Don't hinder our work. We need to seal off this area for deployment of troops." Hearing this, Lu Chuang raised his eyebrows. What is the background of this fugitive? So many troops are needed to arrest him. I am afraid that the bearded man will not need such a big battle when he is alive. However, we didn't receive any notice in advance, the patrolman said puzzledly. We have obtained the relevant authorization. Don't hinder our work. The soldier's attitude was extremely tough, and his words were even more unceremonious. Without arguing with each other, pick up the walkie-talkie and call the headquarters for reinforcements. Ignoring the patrolling police, the soldiers began to clear the surrounding crowd. Even Lu Chuang, who was eating melons, was no exception. Boom. At this moment, a gunshot suddenly sounded. The glass of that building instantly turned into silver light and scattered on the ground. Hearing the sound of gunshots, passers-by immediately knelt down skillfully with their heads in their hands, while Lu Chuang stood there calmly. He knew it was a secret sniper shooting, and it was obvious that the army was attacking the so-called international fugitives. Sure enough, it didn't take long for him to see a man whose whole body was tightly bound by restraint belts, and was sent out of the building by a group of soldiers, whether it was in the open or in the dark. There are countless guns aimed at the man, as if the man is an extremely dangerous person, and he almost put a grenade in the man's mouth. The woman beside her was crying bitterly, and she seemed to be begging an old man in military uniform, but the old man was unmoved. Bruce Banner is a fugitive. I can't let him go. If you weren't my daughter, now you have also been handcuffed by me. At the same time, a system prompt popped up in Lu Chuang's mind. Title trigger. Hunting giant beasts can be completed. Unlock condition. Personally kill the abominable Emil Bronsky, 0/1. Awarded title. Super high school level wrestler. Bruce Banner. When Lu Chuang heard this familiar name, he immediately realized who the man in front of him who was captured by the military was. Dr. Banner of Avengers, also known by Tony Stark as the strongest fighting force of Avengers, will turn into a forgiving Green Titan Hulk when he gets angry. From this point of view, the begging woman should be Bruce Banner's girlfriend, and the old man in military uniform is obviously Bruce Banner's father-in-law. General Ross, who played many times during the Avengers Civil War. General Ross doesn't like Bruce Banner's son-in-law very much, which can be seen from the fact that he spent 8 years chasing and killing Bruce Banner all over the world. Bruce Banner is suffering beyond words. It never occurred to him that it was not his girlfriend but his father-in-law who accompanied him on his global travels. Definitely, Bruce Banner also knows that the real target of General Ross is not himself, but the Hulk in his body. This cold-blooded general is thinking about his super soldier transformation plan, trying to use Hulk to develop a super soldier, which is stronger than Captain America. Be a powerful super soldier. Bruce Banner knew how dangerous his own blood was, so he couldn't let General Ross do what he wanted. What's more, even if Bruce Banner agreed, the Hulk inside him wouldn't. Because of Hulk's existence, even if Bruce Banner is a helpless scientist, he can escape from General Ross's army many times. In the face of Hulk's terrifying strength, no matter how sophisticated the army is, it is a pile of scum. It's just scum. However, now that Bruce Banner was captured by General Ross, Hulk did not show up to stop him. There is only one reason Lu Chuang can think of, and that is that the tailed beast Hulk in Bruce Banner's body was temporarily sealed. If you think about it, you know that a permanent seal is impossible, otherwise Bruce Banner will not have anything to do in the New York War later. Lu Chuang thought about it, and the scene in front of him seemed to be the plot in the movie Invincible Hulk. Although he didn't know the name Emil Bronsky, he knew that he hated the codename. The villain in Invincible Hulk, a soldier injected with Banner's blood, eventually turned into a monster as terrifying as Hulk, an existence capable of crushing Hulk and beating violently. Emil Bronsky should be the captain. Lu Chuang quickly guessed the target, raised his eyes and scanned the surrounding area, but he really didn't see the figure of the captain. Obviously the other party was still staying in that building. If Lu Chuang remembered correctly, Bronsky should be planning to inject himself with Bruce Banner's blood at this time. Lu Chuang pondered, if he prevented Bronsky from injecting Bruce Banner's blood in advance, and killed him while Bronsky was still a human, would it be considered complete? After thinking about it, Lu Chuang felt that this possibility was unlikely. After all, there is an abomination in front of Bronsky's name, which is the unlocking condition. If Bronsky is only a human being, he cannot be called an abomination. This is the same as Tony Stark and Iron Man, who did not build steel armor. This is difficult. Even if there is a gap between the movie and the reality, the combat power of the abomination will not be that bad. After all, it is an opponent who can fight Hulk, and it is definitely not an existence that Lu Chuang can fight against at present. It is not realistic to rely on him alone to kill Abomination with his own hands. Lu Chuang narrowed his eyes, and suddenly looked in the direction of Bruce Banner, and then at the soldiers beside General Ross. 5 minutes later, Bruce Banner was delivered to a military helicopter. General Ross boarded the helicopter with several soldiers and his daughter Betty. The helicopter rose into the air, and General Ross, who successfully captured Bruce Banner, did not show any joy. Instead, his face flushed with anger and his eyes fixed on Bruce Banner in front of him. Because he just learned through Betty that Bruce Banner and a biologist named Mr. Blue have developed an antidote to eliminate the existence of the Hulk hidden in Bruce Banner's body. The worst thing is that this antidote has been injected into Bruce Banner's body. The effect of the antidote is remarkable. General Ross almost beat Bruce Banner into a pig's head, and he didn't even see the slightest sign of green on Bruce Banner's face, but General Ross looked like he was about to turn into a red titan now. You know, the reason General Ross has been chasing Bruce Banner is because of the Hulk. And now that Bruce Banner has injected the antidote, Hulk is likely to be gone, which means that General Ross cannot complete his super soldier transformation plan. 8 years of youth were all in vain. One can imagine General Ross's mood at the moment. General Ross can't wait to grab Bruce Banner and yell, "You just killed the Hulk. Did you ask me how I feel?" Compared to General Ross, who is angry, Bruce Banner with a pig face is full of joy. No one wants Hulk to disappear more than him. For him, Hulk is a disaster, and now he is finally free from this disaster. Without the threat of the Hulk, Bruce Banner was unshackled. In front of General Ross, Bruce Banner exchanged glances with Betty, who was sitting across from him. You and me. General Ross's blood pressure skyrocketed. This kid not only stole his Hulk, but now he wants to take his daughter's snatch. Puff. Seeing that General Ross was about to burst his veins with anger, a soldier next to him couldn't help laughing. General Ross glared at the soldier fiercely, What are you laughing at? The soldier said solemnly. I'm sorry, sir, I suddenly remembered something happy. General Ross glared and was about to reprimand the undisciplined soldier when the helicopter pilot suddenly said, Sir, there is an urgent message from the troops on the ground. They spotted Hulk and are attacking citizens on the street. This is impossible. General Ross denied it without thinking. Bruce Banner is still here, how could Hulk appear below? Hearing their conversation, Bruce Banner was also puzzled. Hulk's features are so recognizable. It stands to reason that these soldiers can't be mistaken. Is it false information? Facts have proved that this is not disinformation. Soon, the troops on the ground sent a live video, and a huge monster with a hideous shape suddenly appeared on the screen. Both General Ross and Bruce Banner could tell that this tawny monster was not Hulk at all. After all, the two did not even match in color, but it was undeniable that this monster was indeed very similar to Hulk, and it was also full of terror, of destructive power. Looking at the appearance of this monster, Bruce Banner could vaguely recognize a familiar face, and turned to General Ross in disbelief. This is your soldier, what have you done? General Ross was silent. At the moment he also recognized the monster's identity, it was his soldier Bronsky, but he didn't know why Brisky became like this at all. Seeing Bronsky transformed into an abomination in the display screen wantonly destroying everything around him, General Ross naturally didn't want to have any relationship with him, and immediately denied. You read it wrong, he is not my soldier. At this time, the soldier sitting next to General Ross suddenly shouted, Sir, look quickly, isn't this our Captain Bronsky? There seems to be something wrong with him, damn it, why is he getting bald? General Ross. Bruce Banner. Is there something wrong with your focus? General Ross glared at the soldier who talked too much. The soldier probably knew that he had said something wrong, so he closed his mouth in embarrassment, but he didn't take it seriously in his heart. The soldier was Lu Chuang in disguise. Not long ago, Lu Chuang found an opportunity to stun General Ross's trailing soldiers, disguised himself as the other side, and sneaked into the military helicopter. Sir, Hulk is moving in the direction of Broadway. Hearing the driver's latest report, General Ross looked very bad. Broadway is an important location in New York, and it happens to be the peak time of traffic at this time. If Bronsky is allowed to rush to Broadway, it is unimaginable how many casualties and property losses will be caused, and he will not be able to escape by then. He might even be court-martialed for it. Get the troops on the ground to gather and stop this monster, General Ross ordered. Seeing General Ross start to arrange, Bruce Banner interrupted. You should know that that kind of monster is not something ordinary people can deal with. You have to take me there, only I can deal with him. What Bruce Banner meant was obvious, he was going to defeat monsters with monsters, namely his tail beast Hulk. Before General Ross responded, Betty next to him couldn't sit still. Bruce, what are you talking about? You just injected the antidote, you may not be able to transform. I know, but I have to try. Bruce Banner is very decisive, no one knows the horror of this monster better than him. If left alone, the whole of New York will suffer from it. Bruce Banner has already guessed that Bronsky may have injected his own blood to turn into this monster. This is his fault. Bruce Banner feels that he has the responsibility to make up for this mistake. Lansky only has Hulk, who is also a monster. Although he has injected the antidote now, Bruce Banner can't care so much. Only Hulk can stop Bronsky, and he must transform into Hulk. Seeing the crazy Bronsky in the picture, General Ross was silent for a few seconds, and finally chose to compromise, ordering the driver to drive to Bronsky's location. When the helicopter arrived at the destination, General Ross said blankly, land down nearby, let him go. No need, this height is enough, if you want Hulk to come out again, you need enough stimulation. Bruce Banner waved his hand, then opened the rear hatch of the helicopter. He's going to jump straight down from here to stimulate the Hulk in his body to come out. Bruce, you don't have to do this, please. Betty panicked and wanted to stop it. She was very afraid that Bruce Banner would fail to transform. If Bruce Banner could not transform into a Hulk and fell from this height, Bruce Banner would definitely it will fall into a pile of mud, and it will never come back together. Betty, I'm sorry. Bruce Banner looked at Betty affectionately, and without giving Betty a chance to stop him, he turned around and was about to make a handsome jump. As a result, as soon as one foot stepped out, Bruce Banner felt a huge force pulling him back. Bruce Banner looked at Lu Chuang, who pulled him back, and asked with a puzzled face, why did you pull me back? Lu Chuang looked serious. You just need enough stimulation. You don't have to jump off the plane. We can use a relatively safe way to stimulate you. At least if the stimulation fails, there is no 100% death rate like jumping off the plane. Although Lu Chuang knows the plot, he is not sure whether his appearance will bring about any butterfly effect. If Bruce Banner falls directly to his death, his plan will be completely ruined. He's right, we can use another method, Betty quickly echoed. Bruce Banner nodded. Feeling that what Lu Chuang said really made sense, he asked, "What way do you want to stimulate?" "It's very simple, has the Russian Ross turned the dial?" As he said that, Lu Chuang took out a revolver from his pocket, took out all the bullets in it, restuffed a bullet into the cylinder in front of everyone, and then turned the revolver quickly. Without warning, Lu Chuang raised the muzzle of the gun suddenly, and pulled the trigger on Bruce Banner's forehead. Crack. Bruce Banner trembled all over, but heard a jamming sound. Apparently it was a blank round. However, Bruce Banner's heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably, and his breathing began to become short of breath. "How about isn't it a little exciting?" Lu Chuang said cheerfully. Bruce Banner. "It's not a little exciting, it's too exciting. Now whether Hulk exists is still unknown. If Hulk does not exist, the bullet hit his forehead must be completely cool, facing the threat of death. Few are able to maintain peace of mind." Seeing that Bruce Banner has not yet turned into a sign, Lu Chuang muttered, "It seems that the excitement is not big enough." Crack. 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 Lu Chuang aimed directly at Bruce Banner's forehead, and pulled the trigger 3 times in a row. Fortunately, it turned out to be all empty bombs. However, Ruth Banner was in a cold sweat. "You're lucky, there are 2 bullets left, and I'll just shoot randomly." Lu Chuang's hand holding the gun dangled restlessly, aiming at Bruce Banner's head at one moment, and at the other Bruce Banner's downside. Bruce Banner's expression was stiff, and he suddenly realized that jumping like this was not a wrong choice. At least jumping off the plane was clean and neat. Even if he died, he wouldn't suffer much pain. It wasn't as tortured as it is now. At this moment, Lu Chuang looked at General Ross beside him. "Sir, do you want to take a shot?" General Ross frowned. He was a soldier and didn't want to do such a meaningless thing. However, he saw Betty looking at Bruce Banner worriedly, and nodded sharply. "Good." Bruce Banner couldn't help swallowing as he watched General Ross, who took the gun with a look of anger on his face. "Shouldn't my father-in-law just shoot him twice?" Just as General Ross was about to raise his gun, Bruce Banner finally couldn't take it anymore, and his heart beat faster. I saw that Bruce Banner's pupils showed a green light, his muscles began to swell at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the clothes on his body were slowly tearing. Bruce Banner couldn't help but let out a low growl. "Roar. Let's go." Seeing this, Lu Chuang didn't have the slightest hesitation, and kicked Bruce Banner, who was transforming, directly off the plane with a left kick. New York, Broadway. The cries of countless people and the sound of gunfire broke the tranquility of the night. At the moment, the streets are full of people running in a panic. All kinds of sundries and wreckage are scattered on the ground. Many vehicles crash into a ball on the road, and there are horrible explosions, screams and screams from time to time. The sound is endless. The peaceful and prosperous streets of the past are completely gone, replaced by a scene like the end of the world. The reason for all of this is the huge figure in the distance. It was a monster more than 3 meters high, with ferocious barbs spreading from the back of the spine, twisting muscles, like countless small snakes wriggling under the yellow-brown skin. Its appearance was extremely ugly. It can be said that it completely satisfied the needs of a villain for some images. To say it is a good person is an insult to it. This monster was the former Bronsky. Hate now. Da 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 da. Countless flames flashed from the muzzles of the guns, and an armed team of troops left on the ground launched a fierce attack on the abomination. However, the guns and bullets of these soldiers have no effect on the abomination at all, and even the damage of the rocket launcher is very small, and even Pekong, who is abomination, cannot break through. Facing the attacks of the soldiers, abomination did not choose to hold back these former comrades in arms. I saw a cruel smile, took a step and rushed directly to the armed team, and rushed to the front of these soldiers in the blink of an eye, stretched out 2 thick arms like stone pillars, and started massacring the surrounding soldiers crazily. A soldier of flesh and blood is no match for hatred. Accompanied by a burst of screams, this armed team was quickly destroyed by the abomination. Haha. That's the power. Hate let out a rough, frosty laugh, feeling the endless power in his body. At this moment, its heart was completely inflated like its appearance. Even if Hulk appeared in front of it, Hate had the confidence to take Hulk away. Torn to shreds. Boom. At this moment, a green figure descended from the sky and smashed straight into the ground. Your Hulk has been delivered, please sign for it. In people's horrified eyes, a big green hand suddenly stretched out from the deep hole on the ground, supporting the ground and slowly revealing the tall figure, which attracted people's desperate screams. Another monster. The Hulk crawled out of the ground and ignored these villains. It tore up the rags on its body, leaving only a pair of elastic purple underwear, and opened its arms and roared to the sky. Roar. The violent roar resounded throughout the street. Hearing the sound, Abomination immediately looked back, and saw the target he had been trying to kill from a distance, opened the corner of his mouth and shouted, "You finally came out, Hulk. I have been waiting for you for a long time." While speaking, the Abomination couldn't wait to rush towards Hulk. The footsteps landed with a loud roar, the hard asphalt road continued to crack, and was crushed to pieces by huge amounts of power. The Hulk who had just climbed out hadn't figured out the situation when he saw an ugly guy running towards him, and even made a provocative speech to him. Hulk, who was a little bit angry, couldn't bear it. Then run up to the Abomination. Boom. Two monsters over half a ton slammed into each other like a bulldozer, and there was a deafening sound, as if the earth was shaking and the mountains were shaking. The sound was so powerful that everyone trembled and couldn't stand still. This power is really outrageous. It deserves to be the strongest combat power of the Avengers. Lu Chuang, who was standing at the rear hatch watching the show, sighed secretly. Can't get it out. Even if he doesn't watch the live broadcast, with his strengthened eyesight, Lu Chuang can clearly see the battle situation below. Just when Lu Chuang was a little obsessed with watching, he suddenly felt a hard object against the back of his head. Turning his head, Lu Chuang found that it was General Ross who raised the revolver in his hand and pointed the muzzle at himself. Other soldiers in the cabin also raised their guns and looked at Lu Chuang vigilantly. Only Betty looked left and right in a bewildered expression, not knowing why they suddenly had internal strife. Lu Chuang put on a standard French military salute. "Sir, you are one of your own." General Ross stared at Lu Chuang coldly, and asked, "Who the hell are you?" Hearing his words, Lu Chuang knew that his identity had been exposed, and said helplessly, "If I say that I was passing by, you would believe it." "Well, I know you don't believe it." Lu Chuang suddenly jumped up and rushed towards General Ross in front of him. The multiple gains of several super high school level talents made Lu Chuang's speed unprecedentedly fast. General Ross's eyes widened, surprised at Lu Chuang's explosive speed. However, General Ross is a veteran soldier after all. He calmly pulled the trigger continuously. Even in an emergency, General Ross did not forget that the gun in his hand only had one bullet. Crack. Crack. The familiar jamming sound came. General Ross's face froze. The pistol had no bullets, but he clearly watched the bullets go into the cylinder. What he doesn't know is that for Lu Chuang, a super high school level thief, secretly hiding a bullet is easy, and the so-called Russian Ross roulette is just a means to stimulate Bruce Banner. The next moment, Lu Chuang grabbed General Ross's neck easily. "Sir, my acting skills should be flawless. How did you find me?" "General Ross. There is no flaw in the bullshit. How can any serious soldier carry a revolver with him?" "It doesn't matter. If you want to blame, you can blame me for exposing me." Lu Chuang smiled like a villain, and said with a smile, "Sorry, now this helicopter belongs to me, and you are all my hostages. After I finish speaking, who agrees? Who objected? Anyone else object?" Lu Chuang clapped his hands and asked politely. After waiting for a while, Lu Chuang didn't hear any objection, and nodded in satisfaction. "Very well, since there is no objection, then this helicopter will belong to me." At the moment Betty hid in the corner of the cabin, not daring to make a sound, and looked at Lu Chuang in fear. Just now, the man in front of him has crushed all those who opposed him. Looking at the fainted soldiers lying on the ground, General Ross's face was so gloomy that water dripped out. "Who are you, and what is your purpose?" "Don't be nervous, I'm a good person. My target is that shit yellow monster down there. I'll let you go after I settle the matter." Lu Chuang kindly explained, fearing that General Ross would be so angry that his blood vessels would explode, and he would be baffled he was charged with killing General America. I will never give in to a criminal. General Ross was very tough. Although his side was at the bottom, he was sure of his momentum. Lu Chuang's eyes were not friendly. Then don't blame me for sending you to Hulk. I believe Hulk must want to see you, old man. Don't stare at me like this. I know what you mean. He punched you to death. Although you are dead, but you are still not convinced, right? General Ross. Father, promise him. Betty couldn't help but said. She was worried that Lu Chuang would really send General Ross to Hulk, and with General Ross's care for Hulk these years, don't expect Hulk to stay with General Luo. Hand. General Ross was silent for a moment, then said coldly, what are you going to do? He can disregard his own safety, but his daughter Betty is still in the helicopter, and before making certain decisions, he has to consider Betty's safety. Just ask the pilot to descend to a safe height. Lu Chuang didn't bother to talk nonsense with this old guy, picked up the soldiers' rifles, walked to the rear hatch to re-observe the battle situation on the ground. Standing at the rear hatch, Lu Chuang saw Chong Wei calling. Oh no, it was hate hitting Hulk. Unlike Hulk, who can only use brute force, Abomination still retains his original memory and reason. As an elite soldier in the army, he can skillfully use various combat skills. With the body of this monster, Hulk is not at all hated opponent. Moreover, Bruce Banner injected the antidote in advance. Although the Hulk did not disappear, it still had a certain impact on it, so that Hulk was directly pressed to the ground by the Abomination and exploded with a hammer. Hulk, is this all you have? Hate firmly held Hulk's huge head, and kept hitting the ground hard. The ground trembled crazily, and the ground continued to spread around like a spiderweb. When the Abomination stopped, Hulk's head was sunk deep into the ground. At this moment, the originally bustling street has turned into ruins, as if it has been hit by a meteorite. The surrounding buildings have become dilapidated, and the ground is full of large and small potholes. It can be seen that the battle between the two monsters is extremely fierce. Even so, it's puzzling that Hulk's stretchy purple panties are still intact. Da da da. At this moment, several bullets roared towards him, splashing countless sparks on the body of the Hatred. Who is it? Relying on his rich tactical experience, Hate judged the direction of the bullet, looked up with fierce eyes, saw a helicopter hovering in midair and could vaguely see a soldier in military uniform standing at the rear hatch. He was raising his gun and shooting at it. After finding that the bullet had no effect on the Abomination, the soldier didn't take it seriously, raised his middle finger, and made an international friendly gesture to the Abomination. Damn it. Suffering such provocation from the other party, he hated rage for a moment, but halfway through the roar, he realized that he didn't know the other party's name, so he yelled, Damn Ross, you are dead. The opponent is wearing a military uniform, so it must be General Ross's soldiers who can't escape, so it's right to blame General Ross. General Ross's face is black. This is all done by Lu Chuang, who cares? Betty looked at General Ross worriedly. She wanted to persuade her father not to get off the helicopter for the time being. She was afraid that after Hulk and Abomination saw that Ross was in a mess, the two monsters suddenly made an appointment to get rid of General Ross first, and then go back and fight. At the moment when the Hatred was distracted, the Hulk below suddenly exploded. Roar. Hulk hissed wildly, and kicked Hate's chest heavily. Accompanied by a frightening sound of gas explosion, the loathsome tumbling and flying out, the vehicles parked on the street crumbling to pieces like toys were smashed by it, and a shrill siren sounded. The Abomination carried a terrifying power, and the whole person crashed into a damaged building. Hulk followed closely and jumped high, jumped to the position where the Abomination was, and scuffled with the Abomination. How could the poor building withstand their strange force? The walls and ceilings collapsed, splashing dust all over the sky. Before the unsightly dust and smoke dissipated, a huge green figure flew out from the ruins. Lu Chuang knew who it was without looking, and shouted angrily, Hulk, can you give me some strength, even if you can't beat him? You won't pay attention to its toes, kick it Gigi. Speaking of this, Lu Chuang suddenly found that the bottom of the Hatred was naked. Not only that, there is no hair on the whole body of the Abomination. Unlike Hulk, at least there is hair on the head. No wonder this guy doesn't need the underpants version of the mosaic. There is no room for love to be typed. Seeing that his teammate Hulk was not strong enough, Lu Chuang had no choice but to immediately turn on the bullet time, aiming at the Abomination who came out of the ruins with 2 bullets. As soon as the hatred got rid of the cover of the smoke and dust, 2 golden bullets suddenly shot towards him. Although the power of the hatred had been greatly enhanced, his reaction force had not been enhanced much. The trajectory of the bullets was still difficult for it to grasp. The bullet fell into its eyes like copper bells with incomparable precision. Ho 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 ya! Hate immediately covered his eyes and let out a heart-piercing roar. Even if its body is hard enough to withstand the damage of the rocket launcher, its eyes are still extremely fragile. After all, not all Man of Steel can even withstand bullets like Superman's eyeballs, at least the abomination cannot do this. But it wasn't over yet. When the abomination opened its mouth to growl, Lu Chuang quickly took out a few grenades from his bosom and threw them into the abomination's mouth accurately. Boom! A series of explosions erupted in the mouth of hatred in an instant. The grenade modified by Lu Chuang is at least twice as powerful as the normal grenade. The hot burning sensation spreads in the mouth of the abomination. Even the monster body of the abhorrence can't bear it anymore. Kneeling on one knee with a painful face covering his throat, black smoke slowly drifted out from its mouth. However, Lu Chuang did not feel lucky. Through Superman's vision, Lu Chuang can see that the injury to the eyes of the abomination is gradually recovering. Although the recovery speed is far slower than his regenerative healing factor, it means that the abomination is harder to kill than he imagined. As the injury gradually recovered, the hatred stood up with difficulty, and at the moment it was already furious. In the eyes of hate, the only opponent he has is Hulk, and the others are ants that can be easily crushed to death. But now, Lu Chuang, an ant, actually made it so embarrassing, which undoubtedly touched the fuse of hatred. Anger spread in his heart, and hatred roared towards the helicopter. You are dead, Ross. General Ross. Good chance. Seeing Abomination's mouth open, Lu Chuang's eyes lit up, and he immediately took out a few grenades from his trouser pocket, and threw another ultra-long 3-pointer into Abomination's mouth. Boom. Ah. Ross, I'm going to kill you. 1. After repeated bombings with grenades, the appearance of hatred is simply horrible to watch. However, the vitality of the abomination is too strong. A few grenades detonated directly in the mouth. This monster was only slightly injured, and even the basic language function was not affected. This vitality is really amazing. At the moment, the abomination is like a wounded beast. Its huge body tramples on the ground, and the eyes that have recovered are full of anger, locking onto the helicopter where Lu Chuang is. Seeing the disgusting eyes that wanted to eat people, Lu Chuang suddenly felt bad. Go into the air, hurry up. Hearing Lu Chuang's reminder, General Ross also sensed that something was wrong, and immediately ordered, take off. The superior spoke, and the pilot quickly controlled the helicopter to fly. Go to hell. With a ferocious roar of loathing, grabbed the car beside it and threw it directly towards the helicopter. Fortunately, the height of the helicopter hovering is quite a distance from the ground, so the pilot has enough time to react, and the helicopter managed to dodge the oncoming car. Betty couldn't help screaming at such a thrilling scene, and General Ross remained expressionless, trying to maintain the image of the general. The helicopter almost crashed. Lu Chuang became angry on the spot, and waved his hand. General, where is your King Gatling? Pull me up. General Ross resisted the urge to crush Lu Chuang, and found Gatling equipped with a helicopter. He is a smart person, and he can see that Lu Chuang has an ability beyond ordinary people. The most important thing now is to prevent the abomination from continuing to wreak havoc, so he chooses to cooperate with Lu Chuang's actions. Lower the altitude. Let this thing taste the power of my merciful Gatling Bodhisattva. Lu Chuang said viciously, set up Gatling in the helicopter, aimed at the huge target of hatred, and the 6 barrels began to rotate. Da 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 da. The moment the warm-up time passed, Gatling burst out with ferocious firepower instantly, and the tracer bullets formed a dazzling trajectory in the night and released them all on the body of the abomination. It's just that this time the hatred learned to be smart, and immediately raised his hand to block his eyes to prevent the bullet from being shot into his eyes again. It has to be said that the body of the abomination is indeed ridiculously strong, and those splashing sparks all show that even Gatling's firepower cannot break through the enemy's armor. The hatred was completely outraged, and he picked up the car next to him and was about to throw it at the helicopter. But Lu Chuang had an insight into all this in advance, and quickly shouted, Ascension, Ascension. Without waiting for General Ross to convey the message, the pilot, who had experience this time, controlled the helicopter again without saying a word. Looking at the helicopter that took off, I hated to take the car and throw it, and I didn't throw it, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward. When the abomination threw the car casually, Lu Chuang's eyes lit up. Down. Da. Fack. Hate and incompetence roared, but Lu Chuang didn't stop. As an ADC, the most important thing is to know how to pull. As long as the enemy can't hit him, he has to output with all his strength. Even scraping will disgust the opponent. In fact, abominations are indeed corrupted by disgust. Not to mention that it is difficult to hit Lu Chuang, who has air superiority. The most uncomfortable thing is that Lu Chuang's attack is as if he is cheating. Hate can clearly feel that every shot is aimed at his eyes with precision. The hatred roared again and again. When did that old Ross find a soldier with such good marksmanship? Boom. Just when the abomination was distracted, another bullet passed through the finger and shot into its eye, and the abomination's anger had reached its peak. Ross, damn old guy, don't let me catch you, or I will absolutely you will regret it. Inexplicably, there was an additional enemy, and General Ross didn't know what to say. Could it be that he ran to the abomination and explained that Lu Chuang was not his soldier, and this guy had nothing to do with him? General Ross didn't think it would be of much use. He knew it from the expression of hatred as if he wanted to tear himself apart, and the other party wouldn't believe it even if he explained it. However, the hatred's attention was all attracted by Lu Chuang, but he forgot that he still had an opponent. Roar. The evil wind came from behind, and the unsuspecting hatred against the back was directly thrown to the ground by the Hulk who fell from the sky. Hulk roared angrily, his huge butt pressed the hatred firmly under his body, clenched his fists, and slammed left and right at the ugly face of the hatred. Seeing this, Lu Chuang stopped shooting at Abomination to avoid accidentally injuring Hulk next to him. Lu Chuang didn't think that Gatling could hurt Hulk, but he was worried that Hulk would misunderstand him as an enemy. Although Lu Chuang knows that Hulk has an IQ, it is not that high. After all, he is not Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, and he does not have the capital to attract Hulk. If he contacts Hulk rashly, he will be beaten like a foolish Thor. End. Down below, there is a dull sound that makes the scalp tingle. The so-called punching the master to death, now Hulk is trying to kill the master who hates him. Just imagine how terrifying it would be if the starting punch of 100 tons exploded. Even if Hulk didn't know any fighting skills, he would be able to hammer Abomination to the point where he couldn't even stand up with brute force and couldn't use his fighting skills. However, Hulk doesn't know fighting skills, but Lu Chuang knows fighting skills. Lu Chuang looked left and right, and found the helicopter's broadcasting device in the cockpit, and shouted at the Hulk below. Hulk, don't fight anymore. You can't beat Deadman like this. Try to cut him down 3 ways. Go to his kick it hard from below. Yes, it is the place that is more bald than the head. Even if you don't have it, you can kick it. Lu Chuang's voice was broadcast through the helicopter, resounding through the entire street, not only reaching Hulk's ears, even the hatred could be heard. Hate and gnash your teeth. What does it mean to be balder than your head? Although the hatred has mutated, it is still a man in essence. How can any man stand such an insult? Just when the abomination was about to scold Lu Chuang angrily, it caught a glimpse of Hulk sitting on top of itself, and suddenly made an expression of evil smile towards itself. Hulk, smash. Hulk spit out a few words like a baby learning to speak, and then raised his fists to aim at the target. Suddenly, fall. Precise chicken. Ah. The picture was uploaded, and Hulk smiled evilly. Facts have proved that no matter whether the chicken and the egg exist or not, there are still the most painful spots for men. Not to mention Hulk, an idiot who can't understand human language. Lu Chuang clearly said he wanted to kick, but in the end he was so clever that he had to hit him with his fist. With more than 100 tons of power concentrated at one point, the originally bare place of Abomination was directly hammered into a depression, and the mournful sound of Abomination could be heard several streets away. Even Lu Chuang couldn't bear to look directly at it. This is all right. I don't think it will pass the trial without coding. The vitality of the Abomination is extremely tenacious. After suffering such painful torture, he still has the ability to resist, struggling frantically under the Hulk. Seeing that the hatred is so strong, Lu Chuang directed Hulk even harder, and gave Hulk all his best skills. For example, what do you say about flirting, inserting eyes, locking throat and snapping fingers, and Black Tiger digging out one's heart? General Ross stroked his beard, secretly thankful in his heart, thanks to Lu Chuang not using these obscene tricks on him and the soldiers just now, otherwise they would have ended up in the same fate as Abomination. However, for Hulk with limited intelligence, this simple move is easier to understand.
Although Hulk didn't know what the effects of these moves were, seeing how painful the Abomination was, Hulk also knew that these moves could help him defeat the enemy, so he was as excited as a child who just got a new toy, and followed Lu Chuang's instructions to deal with the Abomination. Frequently resorted to dirty tricks, but it seemed a bit rusty.
Even so, the Abomination was overwhelmed by the shady tricks on his face. Seeing that Hulk's bloody mouth opened suddenly, and he was about to use the move of biting his ear, Hate hurriedly raised his waist and pushed Hulk away from him, dragging his scarred body, rolling and crawling to get away from the spot. How could Lu Chuang agree, and immediately set up Gatling to shoot at the Abomination? Da 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 da. The bullets all hit the depression below the Abomination, causing little damage, but extremely insulting. Hating rage, he stared up at the helicopter. As a result, as soon as it raised its head, the pilot immediately skillfully controlled the helicopter to pull away from the altitude, without needing Lu Chuang's reminder. The hatred is so aggrieved that I want to vomit blood. This damn guy is really endless. Ignoring Lu Chuang, an annoying fly, seeing Hulk getting up from the ground in disgust, he roared and went straight to meet him. Boom. The two monsters collided again, and the two pairs of arms, which were thicker than ordinary people's waists, were clenched tightly as if wrestling. With the sound of cracking, the ground under the feet of the two monsters was trampled to pieces, densely packed with cracks, spread in all directions. The two sides stood in a stalemate for a few seconds, a stern look flashed across their eyes of hatred, and their arms suddenly exerted force, pulling Hulk directly in front of them, twisting their waist and lifting their knees suddenly, and their thick knees slammed into Hulk's abdomen hard. As Hulk buckled in pain, Hate followed up with a left hook that knocked Hulk to the ground. Before Hulk could stand up, Hate raised one foot after another, and kicked Hulk's head heavily, stomping Hulk's head directly into the ground, as if venting the anger in his heart. Hulk, you are not mine. Opponent, obediently die to me. Seeing the hatred gaining the upper hand again, Lu Chuang couldn't help but shook his head. He was not surprised by this result. Before that, Hulk's fighting skills can be said to be basically zero. Regardless of the fact that Hulk has been hunted down by General Ross for 8 years, in fact Hulk has accumulated very little combat experience. After all, Hulk can easily crush ordinary people with only brute force and no combat skills at all. Therefore, when Hulk faces opponents of the same rank as himself, especially experienced fighters like Abomination, Hulk's inexperienced weakness will be exposed. He has brute force but cannot use it. He was even punched by Thanos with a combination of punches and shut himself up on the spot. Although one force can reduce 10 times, Hulk's current strength is obviously not to the point of completely crushing the Abomination. Lu Chuang knew that the angrier the Hulk, the stronger his physique, but according to the current situation, the antidote injected by Bruce Banner may still remain in Hulk's body, so that the perverted physique was suppressed by the drug effect. Lu Chuang suddenly thought of something, squinted his eyes and looked at Hulk who was being beaten violently. Only he saw that there was a white shadow floating on Hulk's body, and it could be vaguely seen that it was Bruce Banner. After this period of research and training, Lu Chuang has slightly controlled the use of mana. Since he often sees that human souls bring various inconveniences to daily life, Lu Chuang tries to control mana and see himself as the soul. His ability was blocked, but he succeeded. Definitely, Lu Chuang did not give up this ability. As long as he condensed mana in his eyes, he could see the human soul again. And now the shadow on Hulk is the soul of Bruce Banner. Seeing the soul of Bruce Banner, Lu Chuang suddenly had an idea. That antidote should be regarded as poison. Why don't you try it? Seeing that Hulk was suppressed by the hatred, Lu Chuang was very decisive. Try it and try it. Under the surprised eyes of General Ross and Betty, Lu Chuang dropped the Gatling in his hand, and jumped off the helicopter just like Bruce Banner. In midair, Lu Chuang took out a gun from his pocket, shot a rope towards the helicopter, and hung it on the helicopter precisely. Ignoring the strong inertia, Lu Chuang swung the rope and jumped to the roof of a building below, and his figure was quickly hidden in the darkness. The military helicopter was hovering high in the sky, the propellers were buzzing, and the searchlights were projected straight onto the streets of Broadway, reflecting two huge figures who were fighting. To be precise, it was Hate who slapped the Hulk one-sidedly. On the street, Hulk kicked hard on the ground with abominable feet, and the loud drum-like sound made one's scalp tingle. Boom. After kicking several times, Hate raised his foot and kicked hard at Hulk's face. Hulk was kicked out by huge amounts of power, and his body weighing half a ton hit the ground heavily, like a ball full of elasticity, rolling constantly on the ground, leaving broken potholes one after another, and finally hit the ground. The outer wall of a building barely stopped. Fortunately, the surrounding crowd had been evacuated by the police in time. Otherwise, the aftermath of the battle between the two monsters would inevitably lead to countless casualties. The gravel fell from his body, and Hulk spat out broken teeth mixed with blood foam, shaking his dizzy head, and staggered to his feet. But the abomination didn't intend to let Hulk go, and rushed in front of Hulk in the blink of an eye. With a violent roar, his fists slammed fiercely towards Hulk's cheeks. Hulk staggered and received more than a dozen punches, and then started to fight back with a roar, but the strength is obviously much weaker than the beginning. The face of Hatred was full of disdain, and the stinky saliva shot everywhere. You are not worthy of having this power. Only I am qualified to have this power. After saying that, Hate raised his right hand, exposing the sharp bones at the elbow, and plunged into Hulk's chest suddenly. Blood splattered, Hulk roared in pain, resisting the abomination with both hands. The corners of Hate's mouth curled up cruelly, and his arms stretched out almost inhuman muscles. Under its force, the sharp bones slowly inserted into Hulk's heart. Just when Hate was about to pierce Hulk's heart, a rocket bomb with a long tail flame, it exploded between the two monsters. Boom. The force of the explosion forced the abomination and Hulk apart. The Hulk crashed into the building, and the abomination was on the street. Hate looked up and looked around angrily, and soon found the third person who interrupted its fight with Hulk, a man in military uniform, standing more than 10 meters away with a bazooka on his shoulders. Hate recognizes this guy, the soldier who has been shooting and harassing him from the helicopter. Annoying fly, it's you again. Seeing Lu Chuang's appearance, the eyes of Hatred turned red, the ground under his feet shattered instantly, his huge body suddenly rose from the ground, and fell towards Lu Chuang's position like a meteorite, as if smashing Lu Chuang into pieces. Damn it, heavenly vengeance. Lu Chuang didn't expect that the hatred towards him would be so deep, that even Hulk, his opponent, would be ignored, and he would attack him so decisively. The roar of fury swept over. Lu Chuang didn't care about other things. He quickly threw away the bazooka he picked up from the dead soldier, and started the bullet time directly. Under the blessing of adrenaline, Lu Chuang's physical fitness suddenly increased, and he moved away from the original place at an extremely fast speed. Boom. However, the asphalt road where Lu Chuang was originally standing collapsed in an instant, and there was a heart-shattering crackling sound, and the splashed gravel slashed across Lu Chuang's face and scratched him painfully. Facing the abomination at such a close range, Lu Chuang has personally experienced how terrifying this monster is. Even though he has the regenerative healing factor, if he is punched by the abomination casually, it may take a while for his body to come back together. Seeing Lu Chuang dodging his own attack, Abomination was a little surprised. But the abomination didn't think much, now it just wants to crush the fly's bones. Bang. 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 After avoiding the attack of the abomination, Lu Chuang immediately counterattacked, with 2 extra modified pistols in his hands, and pulled the triggers continuously at the abomination. Useless resistance. The loathing grinned, and with experience, it decisively raised its hand to block in front of it. However, Abomination didn't expect that the bullet that was originally aimed at the palm would suddenly draw arcs in midair, bypassing its palm, and shooting into its eyes with incomparable accuracy. The next moment, the bullet exploded suddenly. Damn. Roaring furiously, disregarding the pain in his eyes, he raised his fist and smashed the landing sword with a strong wind. Lu Chuang dodged the attack nimbly, slipped a shovel from Abomination's crotch, drew his gun and fired several shots at the bare place, pretending to be surprised and shouting, "Oh, forget that you don't have Gigi." Roar. The hatred was furious. Lu Chuang's behavior was undoubtedly adding salt to its scars. He raised his foot to trample Lu Chuang to death, but Lu Chuang slipped like a loach. He rolled to avoid the sole of the hatred's feet, ignoring the fact that he was temporarily caught blinding Abomination. Lu Chuang quickly ran to where Hulk was. Soon, Lu Chuang found Hulk in the dusty ruins. Seeing Hulk lying on the ground gasping for breath and struggling to get up, Lu Chuang was very relieved, as long as he wasn't beaten into autism by the hatred. Lu Chuang jumped into the ruins, knowing Hulk's temper. He didn't approach rashly, and shouted from a distance. "Hey Hulk, my own. I'm here to help you. To tell you the truth, I also hate having 7 doctors. Bruce Banner of the degree. Lettuce scumbags can't live." The password is correct. Bruce Banner doesn't like Hulk, and Hulk doesn't like Bruce Banner. What Hulk hates the most is that someone calls it Bruce Banner, so Lu Chuang's words immediately won Hulk's favor, and it also recognized that Lu Chuang was the human who taught him a unique skill, so it just yelled at Lu Chuang, and said didn't make any aggressive moves. Seeing this, Lu Chuang finally felt relieved, jumped into the ruins, and stretched out his hand to Hulk desperately. The sun is about to set. Seeing Lu Chuang's movements, Hulk was a little confused, so he let Lu Chuang's hand touch his shoulder. The moment he touched Hulk, Lu Chuang immediately controlled mana to pour into Hulk's body. Purify. Lu Chuang's mana has the ability to remove toxins, so Lu Chuang named it Purification. Just like the skills in League of Legends, it can remove the negative state of the body. Under Lu Chuang's gaze, the mana quickly rushed into Hulk's body, broke through the body, and rushed to the deeper soul area until it reached Bruce Banner's soul. Seeing that the black spots on Bruce Banner's soul had disappeared, Lu Chuang knew that his mana was indeed effective. Lu Chuang smiled. "Hulk, you have been strengthened, soon, dust." Before he finished speaking, Lu Chuang suddenly found that the Hulk in front of him began to shrink, and the green color on his body also faded. A few seconds later, Hulk turned back into Bruce Banner. "Lu Chuang. When you were about to explode, why did you suddenly soften?" In the ruins, Bruce Banner grabbed his purple underpants, which were completely oversized, and looked around in a daze. "Where am I? What am I going to do?" Lu Chuang was also stunned. He didn't expect that Hulk would suddenly go offline and change back to the trumpet Bruce Banner. Does purification also have the effect of forcing offline? Before he had time to think about the reason, Lu Chuang took out his revolver, stuffed 5 bullets into the chamber of the revolver, and pointed the muzzle at Bruce Banner's forehead. "Time is running out. Let's have something more exciting this time. Bruce Banner. If you want to kill me, just say so." Boom. When Lu Chuang was about to shoot, he suddenly heard a loud noise from behind. Looking back, Lu Chuang saw the hill-like body of hatred standing behind him, with dark green pupils staring at him, exuding a strong tyrannical aura, as if he had crawled out of hell. Ghosts are about to choose people and devour them. Lu Chuang swallowed. "Don't stare at me like that, it's weird. Bug. I'm going to crush your bones." Hate's anger towards Lu Chuang had reached its peak, and he raised his huge fist to smash at Lu Chuang. Lu Chuang is not a Hulk, so he dare not confront the abomination head-on. He flew back without any hesitation, picked up Bruce Banner who hadn't figured out the situation, and ran out crazily. "Don't even think about leaving." With a roar of hatred, he followed up in a rampage. In the face of that terrifying force, any obstacle was instantly destroyed, and the resulting shock caused the already dilapidated building to crumble. Lu Chuang looked back and saw this scene, and immediately ran even harder, shouting while running. "Banner, quickly become a Hulk, or we will all be finished." Bruce Banner. "No, I have an antidote in me, there has to be enough stimulation." "Your antidote has been cleared by me, quickly change it for me." Hearing Lu Chuang's words, Bruce Banner was very surprised. How did Lu Chuang clear the antidote in his body? However, Bruce Banner also knew that the situation was urgent, so he didn't think too much, and tried to summon the Hulk again according to Lu Chuang's intention. Without the suppression of the antidote, it would not be difficult for Bruce Banner to summon the Hulk at all. Bruce Banner uses a special technique of yoga to control his anger and prepare to summon the Hulk. At this moment, Lu Chuang caught a glimpse of a shovel in the corner from the corner of his eye, and immediately interrupted Bruce's transformation with a slap. "Wait. Don't transform for now, I suddenly thought of a good idea." Bruce Banner covered his face and listened to Lu Chuang's explanation in a daze. Afterwards, Bruce Banner had a complex expression. "Is this possible? And I feel a little disgusting. Trust me, this is the fastest way to deal with that monster." Bruce Banner hesitated a bit. All right. The walls shattered and the abomination rushed into where Lu Chuang was, a dead end. Soon, it spotted Lu Chuang standing in the distance holding a shovel.
Bug, have you finally given up struggling? Seeing Lu Chuang stop, he clenched his fists in disgust, and there was a creaking sound of bones rubbing between the fists, and he walked towards Lu Chuang unhurriedly, intending to torture Lu Chuang and let Lu Chuang taste the pain before death. Desperation and pain.
However, it doesn't notice that Bruce Banner is missing at the dead end. Lu Chuang said calmly, "No, I'm tired from running."
Hate didn't care. Looking at Lu Chuang was like looking at a dying ant.
As I said, I will crush your bones to pieces. Hate walked in front of Lu Chuang and looked down at Lu Chuang. From its point of view, Lu Chuang has no way out now. It's now. Lu Chuang saw the hatred approaching, and then shouted. Before the hatred could react, he suddenly felt the ground under his feet break open.
I saw Bruce Banner get out half of his body from the ground, his left arm curled up, his right arm raised high, and with precision and force, he aimed his fist at the soul gate below the abomination.
Hate's eyes widened, and his gluteal muscles tensed subconsciously. An indescribable sense of tearing came immediately. But it's not over yet. Bruce Banner suppressed the nausea from his right arm, and shouted, "Hulk." Bruce Banner's pupils instantly turned green, and his whole body was changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His body was rapidly expanding like an inflated balloon, his bones grew rapidly beyond the scope of biological understanding, and his limbs became thicker and thicker.
And the slender right arm inserted into the body of the abomination grew several times at once.
How does Saya imagine that a chopstick is suddenly replaced by a mace, almost that feeling? Ah! The hatred let out a heart-piercing scream, and the sound seemed a bit sharp. Hulk, who just lay down and was woken up, was not happy at the time. "Why are you yelling so loudly?" Roar. Hulk roared, his right arm suddenly exerted force, he waved to pull up the abomination, and then hit the ground heavily. Under the impact of the terrifying strange force, the ground suddenly spread to countless countries. It may be the reason why Bruce Banner penetrated too deeply. Hulk's arm could not be pulled out, so Hulk swung his gloves and smashed frantically left and right. Every blow made a dull sound, and the ground was like an earthquake, shaking violently. The scene was so beautiful that Lu Chuang didn't dare to watch it, for fear of having nightmares at night. Hate tried to resist, but its position with Hulk was too awkward. It was in a position where Hulk could easily hit it, but it was difficult for it to hit Hulk, so it could only passively accept Hulk's hammer. After Lu Chuang cleared the antidote, Hulk finally showed his true power. The right arm fell down constantly, each impact could make the abomination vomit blood, and the bones continued to make the sound of breaking under the weight. At first, the abomination could howl a few times, but after being smashed dozens of times, the abomination was almost gone movement, hanging on Hulk's left arm like mud. Seeing the limp abomination, Hulk snorted and pulled out his sticky left arm forcefully. But it didn't intend to let go of the hatred, it raised its fist and wanted to hit the face of the hatred that had no resistance. Keep people under your fist. How could Lu Chuang let Hulk smash it down? If Hulk killed the abomination, his mission would be in vain. After all, his mission was to kill the abomination with his own hands. Without waiting for Hulk's response, Lu Chuang directly went over with a cleanse. Large Hulk is offline. Trumpet Bruce Banner is back online. Lu Chuang knew that abomination had a strong recovery speed, so he didn't waste time explaining to Bruce Banner. Before the abomination had no strength to resist, he took out all the ammunition on his body and threw them into the abomination's mouth. Even the soul gate was no exception. Anyway, now the door of hatred is bigger than the mouth, and it can be filled with more. After finishing all this, Lu Chuang closed his hated jaw, pulled Bruce Banner to hide in the corner. Boom. Hunting giant beasts completed, unlocked condition. Personally kill the abominable Emil Bronsky, 1/1, title obtained. Super high school level wrestler. Whether to unlock the title.